Hey, I need your help. I've been looking for 35 years. Yes, 35 years. And I still have yet to find this thing called a 7 year tribulation in all of Scripture, whether it's in the Old Testament or New Testament. I have not found it yet. So I need your help. Yes, I'm joking with you, but I do want to talk just a couple minutes because I actually go in depth on one of my podcasts here, one of my teachings. Also, in my book, Does God Stand with Israel? Does God Stand with Israel? It's on Amazon. I encourage you to get it. But this whole 70-year tribulation is not in the Bible. There's no scripture that talks about it or says it. What dispensationalists do is they go back to Daniel's 70-week prophecy, which I'm going to cover in a full episode here. You'll see it marked. And Daniel's 70-week prophecy, there's what they say is that 69 weeks of the 70 weeks were fulfilled, and I go into detail on that. And there's a gap, there's a delay because Jesus was rejected. So that delay or that gap in Daniel's 70-week prophecy is been going on for over 2,000 years, and dispensationalists obviously have no idea when this gap or this delay in Daniel's prophecy is going to actually reoccur and start again and do the last week, which obviously is a 7 year period, which is where they get a 7 year tribulation. So I have yet to find the 7 year tribulation in anywhere in Scripture. I have yet to find an actual rapture of the church, and then this 7 year tribulation takes place. But I just want to encourage you to dig in by yourself, look at the Scripture. I know what gets taught out there. I know that they put the 7 year this gap in the last week of the prophecy. But let me just say this. They have to put, when I say they, I mean the dispensational crowd, all the ones who are always talking about the end times. They have to put this gap in there, or their whole entire theological premise completely collapses on itself. If they don't have that gap in there, which they had to put in there in order to make their theology sound right, it completely collapses on its head. So I want to encourage you again. Does God Stand with Israel? It's a book. It's on Amazon. Encourage you to get it. I have 19 chapters in there. I talk about everything from God having one plan and one people group. He's always had one plan. God does not have two covenants. He's always had one covenant with all people. And he took the kingdom from the nation, the political nation of Israel in Matthew chapter 21, and gave it to another nation, which was a group of Jews, his disciples at that time. And he gave it to them as a new nation, a spiritual nation, that they would produce the fruit of it. And I go into detail, 19 different chapters on the Abrahamic covenant, the Mosaic covenant, the Davidic covenant. I cover that Jesus himself actually is Israel, where in the Old Testament, Israel is metaphorically spoken as the Son of God, the olive tree, the vine, and Jesus picks up all those metaphors in the New Testament and becomes the perfect vine, becomes the perfect olive tree, becomes the Son of God. And I cover all those things. So I encourage you to get the book. Look at the next podcast here it'll be on YouTube, and also my podcast, Mountain Preacher and Jesus podcast. So anyway, again, please help me. I don't know how many people I've asked in the last 30 years, please show me this 7 year tribulation and the rapture of the church and God taking the church out, the Gentile church, they call it, and then dealing with his purpose, Israel, in the end, which is just not true as well. So in my book, I cover the land promises. I cover everything you could think about when it comes to end time theology. Matthew 24, I go into that in depth, that was all fulfilled in that generation, just like Jesus said it was. So check it out. This is Mountain Preacher and Jesus podcast. I appreciate it. Yes, I'm being a little sarcastic, but I want to get your attention because I want Christians to actually look for themselves and quit listening to people talk about this 7-year tribulation when it doesn't exist. So why don't you go find out yourself and look and search and uncover all the rocks in Scripture and go, wow, it's not even actually here. So where do we go with this? Because if the 70-week prophecy of Daniel has been fulfilled and there's no 7-year tribulation, then the whole premise of dispensational theology completely collapses on itself. Mountain Preacher and Jesus Podcast coming at you. Check out the book, check out the podcast. Looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.